Hello everyone, back again with movie and tune recap. Today, I'm going to explain an American supernatural horror film from 2015, titled Demonic. Spoilers ahead, so watch out and take care. In the opening credits, the audience learns about a group of teenagers who performed a satanic ritual in a rural Louisiana home during the 1980s, resulting in one of them, Martha Livingston, murdering the other four before hanging herself. More than 20 years after the Livingston murders, some locals still believe that paranormal forces were involved in the tragedy. In the present day, an elderly man named Leonard is sent to inspect the long-abandoned house after his wife claims to have heard strange noises coming from the property. Upon arrival, he finds the front door open and decides to go inside. After entering, he calls the police, prompting Detective Mark Lewis to respond to the scene, despite his plans to have dinner and wine with his girlfriend that evening. When Lewis arrives, he finds Leonard's truck outside but no sign of the man, and suddenly, Leonard appears behind him and tells him he saw blood inside the house. Investigating further, Lewis discovers the interior in disarray and finds the bodies of 3 people brutally murdered with an axe in separate rooms. He calls for backup and proceeds upstairs, where he finds a 4th body, still alive. As additional police units and an ambulance arrive, the survivor identified as John is taken from the scene. John recounts the events leading up to the murders and mentions that 2 people, including his girlfriend, are still missing. To assist with the investigation and determine whether John is a victim or a suspect, Lewis contacts his girlfriend, Dr. Elizabeth Klein, a psychologist, to conduct John's interrogation. When Elizabeth arrives at the house, she is taken to the barn where John is being held. She begins speaking with him, and he starts to explain how the incident occurred. The following scenes unfold through 2 interlaced storylines. One shows Dr. Klein's interrogation of John and the police investigation of videotapes recovered from the house, while the other depicts the actual events, often shown through footage recorded by the group, experienced by John and the 5 others who visited the house, including several instances of paranormal activity. 1 week earlier, as part of a paranormal research project, siblings Sam and Michelle interview John, who is Michelle's boyfriend. During the interview, John explains that he is tormented by recurring visions of his deceased mother, Sarah Matthews. He becomes upset upon discovering that Brian, Michelle's rude ex-boyfriend, is also part of the research team and attempts to leave. However, Sam convinces him to stay, assuring him that participating in a séance might help him find closure regarding his visions. Michelle also urges him to join, insisting that investigating the location where his mother appears in these visions could help him sleep better and end the hauntings. The next day, the rest of the team arrives: Brian, Michelle's jealous ex-boyfriend and the group's leader, Jules, the team's expert on spirits and the occult, and Donnie, a quiet technician. A few days later, the team determines that the house appearing in John's visions is the same one where the satanic murders occurred in the 1980s. The group decides to investigate, and though reluctant, John agrees to go with them. Tensions rise between Brian and John during the drive to the house, and when they finally arrive, the group breaks into the old Livingston residence. Soon after entering, John experiences a sudden nosebleed, something that has never happened to him before, but insists that he is fine. Inside one of the rooms, Jules and Donnie discover a large photograph of Martha Livingston and another picture depicting black birds. Jules explains that the birds are grackles, an important symbol in occult traditions, believed to serve as messengers between the devil and his followers. After setting up their cameras and equipment, the group splits up, with Donnie monitoring their progress remotely. While placing a camera in one of the rooms, Jules notices a cross hanging upside down. She turns it upright, but moments later, while her back is turned, the cross flips itself back to the inverted position. Meanwhile, in the present, Detective Lewis and the police review video footage showing one of the teenagers suddenly going insane and attacking the others with an axe. The recording reveals that the doors had been locked, trapping the victims inside, and from the information gathered from John, the killer is Brian and the police question how he managed to escape. Acting on a hunch, Louis checks the milk chute and finds it smeared with blood. Frustrated by the lack of answers, Louis confronts John, accusing him of murdering his friends, just as Martha Livingston did decades earlier, and claims that John tried to kill Michelle, though she escaped. John insists that he could never harm Michelle and reveals that she is pregnant, a fact he had not mentioned before. Elizabeth intervenes, urging Louis to stand down and allow her to continue the interrogation. Back to the story, John and Michelle are in a room setting up a camera when the lights suddenly go out and a door slams shut on its own. Moments later, Jules joins them, and as they see another door slowly creak open, she begins questioning the spirit about its presence. Suddenly, Michelle screams, claiming that something touched her leg. Later, while in the master bedroom, John picks up a ballerina music box, which unexpectedly begins to move on its own. Alarmed, Michelle calls the rest of the group to check it out. As they examine the music box, it starts turning again, and John notices that the ballerina figure appears to be pointing toward a rug. When the group pulls the rug aside, they uncover a circular occult symbol carved into the wooden floor. Jules identifies it as the same seal used in the 1980s ritual to summon and communicate with spirits. As they discuss their discovery, they hear a loud banging noise coming from another room. When they go to investigate, a black bird, previously identified as a messenger between the devil and his followers, flies into the room and dies on the seal. Later, the group splits up to search for signs of ghostly activity. Using a ghost camera, Paul spots the figure of a young boy standing near a doorway. In another room, Sam is grabbed by the leg by a ghostly hand, while Jules briefly sees a ghostly girl standing on the staircase. Meanwhile, in the control room, Donnie demonstrates to John and Michelle how a sensitive microphone can detect sounds and frequencies beyond normal human hearing, including heartbeats. At first, the device registers only 3 heartbeats, their own, but soon begins to detect several more, suggesting the presence of unseen entities in the room. Using the ghost camera, Michelle sees a spirit, and suddenly, a painting of the Livingston family bursts into flames. John rushes to a nearby closet, grabs a fire extinguisher, and puts out the fire. The rest of the team enters the room and realizes once again that John inexplicably knows the location of specific objects within the house. To test this, they question his knowledge, and John accurately identifies the location of a drawing of a girl hidden beneath some wallpaper and points out an image of a seal imprinted on the back of a photograph. He then mentions seeing a woman standing behind Jules, moments before Jules is violently dragged across the house by an unseen force. When the group manages to recover her, John insists that they must leave immediately before something worse happens. However, both Paul and Jules refuse, explaining that this kind of evidence is exactly what they have been searching for as ghost hunters. They argue that documenting it could be groundbreaking and finally legitimize their work. A distressed John continues urging Michelle to leave, but Paul approaches them and reveals that he discovered something significant. John's mother was not only present in the house on the night of the murders in the 1980s but was also the sole survivor. Brian suggests that if they stay and perform the seance, John might be able to communicate with his mother and learn what she is trying to tell him, possibly putting her spirit to rest. The group proceeds with the seance, using the seal as part of the ritual. As paranormal activity intensifies around them, Jules repeatedly warns everyone not to break the circle by letting go of the hands of those beside them. Amid the growing chaos, Michelle begins to experience severe pain, and John suddenly sees his mother beside him, telling him to let go. When John releases his grip to help Michelle, the circle is broken, and everything quickly spirals out of control. The group scatters in panic, and John eventually encounters Brian standing before a painting, muttering repeatedly that he must kill everyone in the house. Brian then attacks John, who narrowly escapes, while Brian vanishes into the darkness. Back in the present, Dr. Klein continues questioning John, who insists that the house did something to Brian, driving him to kill Sam, Jules, and Donnie before attacking John and kidnapping Michelle, who is 10 weeks pregnant. Meanwhile, Detective Lewis works with forensic officers to recover video footage from the research team's cameras to determine what actually happened inside the house. The investigation confirms that the three bodies belong to Sam, Jules, and Donnie, while Michelle and Brian are missing. Based on John's account, Lewis concludes that Brian is the likely killer and may have fled the house in pursuit of Michelle. When a report of a stolen vehicle nearby comes in, Lewis issues an APB on the car, which is soon located crashed a short distance away. Responding officers find Paul badly injured but still alive, with no sign of Michelle. However, Paul suddenly regains consciousness, attacks one of the officers, steals his gun, and escapes into the woods. He eventually reaches a convenience store, where he assaults the cashier. Before driving to the store, Lewis tasks Dr. Klein with identifying the mysterious symbol found in the house. During her research, Klein discovers that the seal used in both the past and present seances is known as the seal of the left-hand path. The symbol is said to release a demon from its prison by possessing one of the participants, compelling them to murder the others and then commit suicide, allowing the entity to transfer into a pure vessel and be reborn into the world. Klein calls Lewis with an urgent warning, explaining that Brian is likely delusional, believing himself to be possessed and driven to kill everyone. The police surround the convenience store, and Lewis orders his officers to slide a walkie-talkie inside, hoping to communicate with Brian. When John hears what's happening through Dr. Klein's radio, he grabs it and begins shouting, demanding to know where Michelle is. Hearing John's voice, Brian picks up the walkie-talkie and starts screaming into it repeatedly. On the other end, John is thrown backward, convulsing violently as he goes into cardiac arrest, his seizures worsening with each of Brian's screams. Dr. Klein pleads with Lewis to intervene, and the detective fires 3 shots into Brian's chest, bringing the ordeal to an end. As Lewis leans over the dying Brian, he urgently asks where Michelle is, and he weakly reaches for the cross necklace around Lewis's neck before succumbing to his injuries. One of the officers then points out that Brian had been unable to communicate because his tongue had been removed. Back at the house, Lewis enters the bedroom where he had first found John and inspects the walk-in closet, recalling the box of crucifixes he had noticed earlier. While exploring the closet, he discovers a small hidden door leading into the interior of the house, and inside, he finds Michelle bound and gagged. As paramedics carry her away, Michelle keeps repeating, "Same room," over and over to Lewis. Meanwhile, a police officer shows Dr. Klein archival interrogation footage of Sarah Matthews, in which she claims that Martha Livingston said everyone had to die so she could go free. Klein's attention is then drawn to newly restored footage from the house, revealing that it was John, not Brian, who stood before the painting repeating that everyone had to die. The footage continues, showing John attacking Brian, cutting out his tongue, and then murdering Jules, Donnie, and Sam. Meanwhile, Lewis enters the room and discovers the real John's lifeless body hanging in the same room where he had found Michelle, having taken his own life. Outside, in the barn where the other John is being held, Dr. Klein confronts him. Now aware of the truth, she accuses him of committing the murders as part of the ritual, but failing because not everyone died. The man, revealed to be a demon impersonating John, tells Klein that it's already too late. He reveals that Michelle is his intended vessel and that his plan has always been to be reborn through her unborn child. He declares that once Michelle crosses the house's occult seal, he will be set free, and suddenly, an invisible force begins to choke Klein and the demon vanish. Lewis arrives and saves Klein, but dismisses her claim that John was responsible, explaining that he had just seen John's dead body in the house. In a panic, Dr. Klein reviews the footage from her interview camera, only to discover that John does not appear on the recording at all. As Michelle is transported in an ambulance, she tells the paramedic that she just felt her baby kick. The paramedic checks and assures her that the baby is alive and healthy, and the film ends with the now demon-possessed child moving inside Michelle's womb. Okay guys, that's all the recap about Demonic from 2015. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video.